Good afternoon, Monica Miller here, Legal Director and Senior Counsel for the American Humanist Association. This is Legal Tuesdays, where I answer your questions about separation of church and state that you've asked for us on our social media platforms. The first question I will answer today comes from Justin Smith on Facebook, who says, I work as a preschool aide at a public school in Michigan. Every day the kids get on a transfer bus from the preschool to the high school, and the driver constantly plays a channel of Christian gospel prayers every day. Also, the children are taken to a private aging center once a month and forced to pray when they get there. He goes on to say he's brought up the issue with the public school and they have not addressed it, and he asks what can be done. There's two separate issues here. I'm going to start with the prayer issue, taking students, public school, impressionable young preschool age students to an off-campus event or function where they are forced to pray. That is unequivocally unconstitutional, pursuant to decades of binding Supreme Court precedent. The Supreme Court has made very clear that students cannot be coerced into participating in a religious exercise. So much so that even in the Lee versus Weissman case, which involved graduation ceremonies for middle school and high school students, even though the court said even though these prayers, even though the event itself is voluntary, students can still graduate without going to this, commencement ceremony. And even though they don't have to participate in the prayers, it is coercive to make a student choose between going to their graduation and being subjected to a prayer and foregoing this important event. It's also coercive for the students that are there to have to make this choice to, if I'm not religious, do I pretend to pray just because I have my peers and all my teachers and faculty watching, or do I abstain from the prayer and then out myself as an atheist or a non-Christian if it's a Christian prayer or whatnot. So the Supreme Court has time and again recognized this principle that coercion, if nothing else, if the Establishment Clause means nothing else, it means you cannot coerce young children into participating in prayer, which is the quintessential religious exercise. The fact that these are young, incredibly impressionable students, we're talking preschool. They thought Deborah Weissman, the plaintiff in the Lee versus Weissman case I'm referring to from the 90s, was an impressionable young student, and I think she had just graduated from 8th grade. We are talking about 3 and 4-year-old children here. So I would strongly encourage you to send us a complaint. Send me an email at mmiller@americanhumanist.org. I will send a letter to the school demanding that they cease this practice immediately. Doesn't mean that they can't take the kids to this elderly center, but it certainly means that they cannot be around a situation where there's a prayer being involved, especially when the students are expected or encouraged or in any sort of way influenced to participate in the prayer. Period. Full stop. So yes, please, I'd be more than happy to send a demand letter and even follow through with litigation if there is a plaintiff that is willing to step up for this. With respect to the bus music, that's a more nuanced issue. You've got kind of a few layers going on here, but I would argue, I haven't seen this come up before where there's a bus that is taking kids and has music, or anything really that's happening in the bus that involves church-state separation. Because of the young age of these kids, because it sounds like they are, this is a public school bus, I would strongly argue that is unconstitutional, that the bus driver cannot be playing, you're saying it's not just Christian music, but actually gospel prayers every day. I'd have to investigate the facts a little bit more to understand the nature of this bus, but if it's a public school bus and kids are, in a captive environment, they can't get off the bus, this is their main mode of transportation to school, and they're subjected to prayers, before the school bell rings, I think there's still enough state action for there to be an intervention legally. So again, I'm more than happy to get involved with this and write a letter or two, depending on what we have going on. So please do reach out if you want. And let's see, there's another question. I have time for one more. Becky Ulrich asks on Facebook, in my county, the sheriff's office put "In God We Trust" on the back of all of their vehicles. How is this able to happen with the separation of church and state? I feel like I'm not frustrated with the question, I'm frustrated with the situation. I do think that this question has come up in a few other videos I've done. The long and the short of it is that we can't do much about "In God We Trust" right now. The courts have looked at it pretty much as a benign, non-theistic sort of reference to a deity, and unfortunately this is sort of part of the Project Blitz I think I've talked about a few videos back. a concerted effort by Christian sort of nationalists trying to do away with separation of church and state, and this is sort of one of their tactics. Now, with respect to the fact that they're going on sheriffs, the back of sheriffs' vehicles, we have seen this crop up a few times. Every once in a while, if you are the individual officer and you're being forced to communicate this message on the back of your vehicle, even if it's a county vehicle, I think it is something we would probably send a letter on behalf of. We might not litigate the issue. We'd have to look into more of the facts. But as a citizen, unfortunately, I mean, the language is on our currency. It is considered our national motto. Efforts have been made to challenge it. Doesn't mean that we can't challenge it in the future. It just means right now, this is not, unfortunately, the time to challenge In God We Trust. That doesn't mean we don't encourage people to protest it. We actually actively encourage everyone that comes to us with an In God We Trust complaint to make your opinion known to the relevant officials, whether you want to do like one of those campaigns or petitions, or just send your own letter saying, look, I'm an atheist, I'm a citizen in this community, and when I see it on the back of a sheriff's car, it makes me feel like I'm not going to be treated impartially. It makes me feel like somehow, God is playing a role in the administration of justice around here, however you want to word it and why you feel it's problematic. We can even, offer some suggestions in the letter if you wish to do something like that. So that's all I have time for this week, but I look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks on the next Legal Tuesdays.